Okay, let's get into some stuff. This is from Boots on the Ground News. 92-year-old Extinction Rebellion rebel John Ines arrested at Parliament Square today fighting against climate change and for his 45 grandchildren in the future of the planet. Whoo-wee, that's a lot of grandchildren. Dang. There's something in that right there. 45 grandchildren in the future of the planet. There's a math equation in there, right? This is from Beyond Politics, which is the new organization that Roger Hallam has as part of starting. The UK government sinks further into the gutter with their arrest of a 92-year-old. The government has no shame. Give me 1 second, guys. Well, this is from the BBC News. From 2 hours ago, arrests as Extinction Rebellion protests begin across England. Today is the day that a larger action was supposed to take place. At least 65 people have been arrested at climate change protests causing disruption across England. Extinction Rebellion organized national action in London and Manchester to urge the government to prepare for a climate crisis. Campaigners were arrested after they sat in the middle of the road next to Parliament Square to stop traffic. In Manchester, protesters have been urged to reconsider their actions following a rise in COVID-19 cases. Oh, so, that's interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting because there's been this whole messaging around like the Black Lives Matter protests and, protests against police brutality, which, I'm totally behind, 100% for. I support all of those protests. But there's been this messaging that like none of these protests have contributed to rises in COVID-19, that this is more important. Police brutality is just as deadly, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, but here you have a climate change protest, and they're saying, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't go protest because COVID-19. Okie dokie. I just find the difference in messaging interesting. This is not, apparently protests against climate change or around climate change are not more important than COVID-19 or not more important than the pandemic. Oh, really now? I'd say you got that really messed up. Extinction Rebellion said it planned to peacefully disrupt the UK Parliament in London. With 10 days of demonstrations until MPs back the climate and ecological emergency bill. Other planned events in the capital include a carnival of corruption, which is due to take place outside the Treasury, and a walk of shame near the Bank of England. Protester Karen Wilden, or whichever way you want to say it, a 56-year-old tutor from Leicester, told the PA News Agency, I'm here today because I have serious concerns about the future of the planet. We need to put this above anything else. And I'd say, on a very logical level, right? You have, COVID-19, you have, yes, police brutality is really bad. That is bad too. COVID-19. Oh, the whole planet everybody might die on the planet. It's, messed up to kind of quantify what should garner people's concerns or what should be topmost in people's minds. I think all of these things are important, right? You could say that all of these things are extremely important. The immediate state of, the health of the people at the moment due to coronavirus, Obviously, police brutality, a huge and pressing issue that needs to be addressed immediately. And then you have the possible extinction of all life on Earth, which, golly. Well, you can't talk about that because coronavirus, or you can't talk about that because whatever. Again, it doesn't really matter if you whatever it is you're fighting for or concerned about or interested in or think is the most important political messaging or the most political concern for anyone. Actually, on a logical scale, they do not take precedence over the extinction of everyone on the planet and all animals. They do not take precedence over having a healthy habitat for everyone to live in. But whatever, Kuro Hikes, good point. Wouldn't have to protest if cops weren't murderers and corporations weren't dooming us all to starvation and heat stroke. Indeed. They all, and the truth is that they all go hand in hand. Right? Police brutality keeps, the state control, or, keeps the paradigm functional as it is, right? Make sure that the paradigm is functioning as it is. Right now, you can't question the paradigm. You can't come up against it. You can't threaten to do away with it. You can't threaten action against it. The police brutality helps keep all of this in place. But again, I just find that the messaging very interesting. Sarah Lennon, a member of Extinction Rebellion, said the failure to act on this issue will have a catastrophic impact on the future of us and generations to come. We want to occupy Parliament Square to make our voices heard. Of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but we're balancing the risk. This is the biggest issue facing us. The Metropolitan Police said Tuesday's gathering could only take place off the main roads at Parliament Square Gardens between 8 British Standard Time and 1900, or 800 British Standard Time and 1900. Boats, vehicles, trailers, and or other structures were banned from the procession. Okay. The Met said, as of 1600, a total of 65 people have been arrested on suspicion of public order offenses. Met Commander Jane Connor said the reason we have implemented these conditions is that we know these protests may result in serious disruption to local businesses, commuters, and other communities and residents, which I will not tolerate. I will not tolerate. Last year, more than 1,700 arrests were made during Extinction Rebellion's 10-day autumn uprising. Oh, look at that. Met Commander Jane Connors. Jane Connors. So, apparently women can take part in fascism as well. Right? It's only men who are fascists, according to a lot of people. Anyways, last year, more than 1,700 arrests were made during Extinction Rebellion's 10-day autumn uprising. In Manchester, a march is planned through the city, and Oxford Street has been closed as part of a 5 days of action. City Council Deputy Leader Nigel Murphy said planned demonstrations cannot adhere to social distancing rules. Oh, really? Wow. The city has increased restrictions due to a recent rise in COVID-19 cases. Mr. Murphy said while the council respected the right to peaceful protest, this should not be at the expense of local people. He said, we are in the midst of a global public, so here we go, public health crisis. All of a sudden, it really is a crisis if you're trying to protest climate change or the extinction of people, Maybe that's a bit of a catch-22 there. People are protesting the extinction of all life on Earth and, many humans or all humans on Earth. But they can't do that because of the threat of the extinction of a couple of people or a few thousand people, or 180,000 people, or 500,000 people due to a pandemic. It's a lot of people. However, that's going to pale in comparison to the amount of people that are going to die due to climate change. Mr. Murphy said, while the council respected the right to peaceful protests, we already read this. Manchester is currently under increased restrictions to limit the spread of the virus because the number of cases has been rising. Gatherings larger than 6 should only take place if everyone is exclusively from 2 households or support bubbles. Wow, okay. Very nuanced there. So you can have a gathering of more than 6 if everyone is from 2 households or support bubbles, whatever that means, right? Now people are going to have charts and graphs and well, these people are in my support bubble, so that's fine. He said the city had one of the most ambitious carbon targets in the UK and was working to become zero carbon by 2038. Okay. A Titanic themed demonstration was also held in the Southend-on-Sea, where protesters said much of Essex would be underwater by 2050. There you go. Let's see if we can see anything about this on the Twitter. Here we go. Rebels arriving at Parliament Square now. We want to live. This is Extinction Rebellion UK. Thousands of Extinction Rebellion protesters gather in London. Organizers of anti-lockdown protests was fined £10,000. Organizers of this will be fined nothing. Okay, this is Paul Joseph Watson, who is a contributor to the Alex Jones channel. What Paul Joseph Watson is leaving out is that 5 people were arrested before this even started. 5 people who were organizing this were arrested before this even started. So very cherry-picked there, Paul Joseph Watson. Another colossal waste of Met Police's UK time and resources looking after lots of people who have great luxury of clearly not needing to be at work whilst they prevent others from getting to work. Okay, this guy making it all about people going to work or not having to work. So completely missing the whole point of it. Good job, Ben Bradley, MP. This is Rachel Venables, or Raquel, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Extinction Rebellion activists are now marching through central London to Parliament Square, blocking traffic as they go. They plan to be in the city for the next 10 days. Meyer Tusi, this is what Meyer Tusi thinks. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Meyer Tusi thinks protests and movements must be allowed in a free society, but when they cross the line and commit crime, they must be banned. So far, this applies to Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Extinction Rebellion. Okay, this guy is clearly a walking turd. Or, just whatever, a walking sack of whatever you want to call it. David Curtin believes Extinction Rebellion should not be allowed to illegally block London's roads. I'm waiting for the Met Police to hit them with a $10,000 fine. All right, a lot of fascist bootlickers out there. A lot of law and order types out there. This is tweeted out by Extinction Rebellion London. This is a health emergency. Doctors spark mass fly posting of petrol pumps with graphic health warnings across UK. Last night, over 20,000 warning labels were stuck to UK petrol pumps as part of a national campaign led by doctors for Extinction Rebellion. That's pretty awesome. Doctors for Extinction Rebellion. Aman Bogal says, imagine Britain shock, Extinction Rebellion, socialism, or extinction. Okay. So that's what's going on with Extinction Rebellion. Keith Hayes says, COVID first. The problem is more immediate than anybody who joined from XR sympathies can move to the next objective, or are you going to forget what you are all about? I won't. I'm not really sure. I'm a little bit confused by that, Keith Hayes. Donald McCarthy, Martucci is a fascist bastard indeed. Jay Brandt, corporate fascism for years now, in my honest opinion. Yep. Well, it's a beautiful thing to see XR doing what they're doing, getting, they were kind of laying low through the whole beginning of the coronavirus thing, respecting the pandemic and respecting the social distancing measures. They weren't really doing a lot of actions, but now, I don't know how many months later, 6 months later, 7 months later, there's been easing of lockdowns and tightening of lockdowns, and it's up and it's down. Really, how long can you wait? We don't have any time. Coronavirus or not, I think you have to do your best to take measures, wear masks or whatever it is, and take precautions. But the time is nigh. G. Demarest, the elite would not worry about killing you to make one more dollar. Absolutely, positively true. Jay Thadcast, the whole point of disruption is to piss people off to the point of arrest. But we live in a world of fines. You're right. That is the point. And they're making the point, and that's what they're doing. Alexis asks, anybody else watch Hermitcraft? I don't know what that is. Oh, it's a Minecraft server. Okay. Okay. I don't know. G. Demarest, if you don't protest, you are acquiescing. Again, if anybody has not yet watched the Roger Hallam speech in Swansea, just, Google that or whatever, look that up on YouTube. Amazing speech, and he really drives the points home. That there is no time, there's no reason that people should be acquiescing to the climate catastrophe the way that we are now. So he's just saying, you have really a couple of choices. And really only one of them is right. Keith Hayes, British arrests are more humane than American arrests. I believe you. Yeah. I totally believe that. Yeah, if you've ever seen, remember what they did to the Earth Firsters. Earth First was a pretty prominent eco protest group in the late '90s and early 2000s, and they did a bunch of actions, and they came down really hard on them, on the Earth Firsters. I mean, they although you know what, I've actually seen the UK police do what they did to the Earth Firsters, as far as, they'd zip tie them on the ground, spray them, with mace, or spray them with whatever, pepper spray or mustard spray, and they really just they roughed them up pretty good. And it was quite effective, because Earth First is not much of an organization now, right? They really drove them kind of apart and underground. And that's what happened to the Occupy movement as well, right? Occupy was a movement, and the state came down pretty hard, and came with a message of this is what we're going to do, and a lot of people were like, okay, well maybe we'll just go over here then. Anyways, let's Osama says they don't care about you at all, at all, at all, says George Carlin. Right, Rich Diana, they threw the book at the Earth Firsters for trying to blow up a power station. Long sentences. Yes. Yes, they did. Let's move on. Good tweet from Peter Kalmus, who spoke at the Movement for a People's Party convention the other day. For me, the only thing worse than witnessing rapid, irreversible climate and ecological breakdown is to do so while the DNC and Biden promise not to end fossil fuel subsidies or fracking, while being told to shut the F up by self-described climate activists when I point this out. Right. He goes on to say, for the record, I want Trump to lose, which at this point means I want Biden to win. But call me old-fashioned. I think the best way to win elections is for candidates to earn votes, which means adopting popular policies. I'm trying to help you, you MFers. So he says, look, contrary to received wisdom about what makes Biden electable, 74% of voters in Pennsylvania support fracking regulations. Exactly. There's overwhelming support for Medicare for all, for action on climate change, real action on climate change, not just, around the edges, piddling around the edges. And a host of other progressive policies. And that the Democratic Party isn't going to give you any of them. They're not going to give you any of them. They're just going to be like, well, we're better than Trump, and we'll just be a lot nicer than Trump. We'll take coronavirus seriously. Okay, but we're not going to give you any of the things that you really that the overwhelming majority of people, not even Democrats, but just people in the U.S. support. We're not going to give you those things. How you expect to actually win with that kind of message, which people can see. Well, some people can see. All the vote shamers on social media, I for some reason, they can't see this. It just, Ryan Knight, who's on Twitter, popular socialist commentator Ryan Knight, tweeted out, Biden just stumbling through a press conference again. And he's like, he basically said, liberals, what is your excuse for this, right? Somebody I know tweeted out, 180,000 dead. What's your point? Okay. I suppose that's a point, but, you're missing the context here. That if you really, missing the whole point, that if you're really concerned about making things better, perhaps you should, support a better candidate. The Democrats did not support the better candidate. They didn't. They just didn't. The better candidate was Bernie Sanders. Period. End of story. The end. Bernie Sanders has more enthusiasm, supported all the policies that all Americans support. The Democrats, made sure that he lost because they don't want to support those policies. They really don't want to support those policies. That is the message. The message is, no, we will not give you those things. No, we do not support those things. Sorry, have a nice day. But if you vote for us, we're going to make it your fault if you don't vote for us. That's the thing. Whatever. So I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the voter shaming. No, it's not. It's not, obvious. No, it's not simple. No, it's not apples and fascism. No, it's not. It's fascism and fascism light. That's what it is. It's fascism and fascism light. And if you don't understand that, then you don't have any you don't have enough political acumen to have anything to say about anything, to have anything political to say. You don't have enough political knowledge in your brain to understand what's really going on. You don't understand what's really happening. You're operating on operating on an intellectually diminished platform or a diminished argument. You don't really know what's going on. You don't really understand what's going on, but you're going to tell people they're bad people for not doing what you say that you should do. Anyways, let's move on to the aftermath of Louisiana, Hurricane Laura in Louisiana. Some Louisiana residents won't have power for weeks, if not months, after Hurricane Laura. That's a long time. 15 years after Hurricane Katrina devastated Louisiana, the state faces another long, grueling recovery in the wake of Hurricane Laura. Laura destroyed parts of Louisiana's power grid after making landfall Thursday as the strongest hurricane to strike the state since 1856. The strongest hurricane to strike the state since 1856. The storm struck with 150-mile-per-hour winds, shredded houses, and contributed to at least 17 deaths in Louisiana and Texas. Hurricane Laura caused a storm surge of 9 to 12 feet and pummeled homes in Lake Charles, Louisiana. The damage is so extensive that some infrastructure needs to be rebuilt from scratch, said Entergy, a power company that serves Louisiana and Texas. And that could mean weeks or months of powerless misery in the humid Louisiana heat. You want to know what climate change feels like? It feels like losing power in the middle of the summer in the south of the United States, where a lot of people might not even live, right? If it's hot enough and if it's humid enough. A lot of people who are too weak for those circumstances, might not survive. That's climate change. Coming back to this, we expect the recovery to be as difficult and challenging as we have ever faced in the past, said Philip May, president and CEO of Entergy Louisiana. Transmission lines act as the interstate system for electricity, allowing companies to carry blah, blah, blah. We all know that. All 7 transmission line corridors feeding into the Lake Charles area have been catastrophically damaged, Entergy said. In Cameron Parish, it could take 2 months for residents to get their electricity back, said Ashley Bueller, Assistant Director of Parish Emergency Preparedness. Losing access to clean running water. Again, this is climate change. When climate change knocks out your infrastructure, and all of a sudden you don't have access to basic necessities. That's called climate change is an existential threat. Hurricane Laura also knocked out most of the water service in Lake Charles. City Administrator John Cordone said. Cordone said the water problem is not just due to a loss of power, but also the possibility of broken pipes all over the city. There were a lot of uprooted trees on private property. He said if they got the water lines on the private property, we need to go there and locate it if people are evacuated. We don't know where the leaks are. Cordone said he hopes to get running water restored to everyone as soon as possible. I can assure you we are doing everything we can. He said we understand the criticalness of getting water to our citizens. We are bringing in engineers and generators to work on this. We just took a massive hit with this storm. Yeah, again, looking like, cleanup efforts after Harvey, Michael, and other major hurricanes, which are now happening every single year, which are now just like, well, here we go again. Another major hurricane came in and just wiped out a whole bunch of communities, wiped out a whole bunch of infrastructure. Ho-hum. I'm going to read this. I thought this was a very interesting article, and this is in the Business Insider. And you guys might find this interesting for obvious reasons. The pandemic could lead to a baby bust of almost 500,000 fewer births. A major think tank projects. The Brookings Institute economists predict that the coronavirus pandemic will lead to what they call a baby bust, or a decline in pregnancy and birth rates. In fact, the pandemic could result in 300,000 to 500,000 fewer births next year, according to Melissa Kearney and Philip Levine, co-authors of the Brookings report. Now, listen to this. This is where it gets interesting. Wharton professor Mauro Guillen warned in a LinkedIn post that this has dire implications for the economy, projecting the over 60 population will be the largest consumer group by 2030, by which time the Social Security Trust Fund ratio will fall below 100% financial adequacy level per a federal projection. Of course, those projections are actually a bunch of manure, because Social Security, there's nothing wrong with the Social Security Fund if it's not tampered with by the neoliberals. While some have joked about the potential of a pandemic baby boom as couples are holed up together, Kearney and Levine note that speculation about baby booms after events like blizzards or blackouts often does not hold up. Sorry about that. Instead, economic loss, insecurity, and uncertainty are the primary reasons that the pandemic will lead to a decrease in births. The 1918 Spanish flu led to a decline in birth rates. Because of war manufacturing, there wasn't a recession then, only an economic contraction. The U.S. fell into a recession in February amid the coronavirus pandemic and the shutdowns. It necessitated the unemployment spiked to 14.7% in April, well above the 10% peak during the Great Recession peak. While it has come down through the summer, it remains over 10%. The Great Recession also led to a large drop in birth rates, with a drop of almost 400,000 fewer births from 2007 to 2012. Guys, how many times have I said this? And how many different ways can I say this? The response to coronavirus was also happened to just be accidentally the most amazing response to climate change. Period. The end. Drop the mic. The response to coronavirus, what we did in response to coronavirus, was the most, as of yet, to date, the most far-reaching response to climate change, on top of the amount of emissions that went down, on top of a 90% drop in air travel, which is absolutely what is necessary to fight climate change. On top of all of these things, you have a drop in birth rates. You have a built-in, not just an answer to overpopulation or increased population or increased consumption, maybe. I don't know. Possibly it's an incentive or a disincentive to have children, right? Again, here is another, yet another data point that supports my argument that if we want to really fight climate change, we should just get all governments and all corporate media on board with a coronavirus level response to climate change, with a lockdown, quarantine, social distancing, whatever. The exact same things that we did in response to coronavirus, we could do them right now in response to climate change. To get an immediate drop in emissions, an immediate drop in population. Bang. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there.